Welcome to the Family Banking Blueprint. Faith, family, and financial freedom.
Welcome to the Family Banking Blueprint podcast. This show is for women who put family first, value their faith, and work hard, yet they were never shown how to multiply their money without sacrificing their lives. This isn't about the hustle or the get rich quick. It's about opportunity, decisions, and building a family bank that buys you time, flexibility, options, and family adventures. Here we talk about real estate, passive income, and the beliefs that come even before the first investment. Let's talk about what that looks like. Hey friends, welcome back to the Family Banking Blueprint podcast. I'm getting better at saying that. Oh man, I tell you what, starting anything new and just getting momentum and consistency is always half the battle, right? I was having a couple of conversations and I was thinking this week, what keeps coming up that I keep hearing about from people? And it is mid-year 2026 and people are struggling financially. As I talk to people, gas prices have been high for a long time, which then in turn makes everything else high and expensive. And I think you just don't realize how much money gets spent. And pretty soon when prices go up even just a little bit and it affects everything, all of a sudden it compounds on the cost of living. So there's been a lot of conversations lately about, my gosh, I am charging on credit cards. I am in debt. I don't know where the next paycheck's going to come from. I'm also finding lots of friends that are business owners that are starting to think that they're failing, that they're doing something wrong because their Airbnbs are not producing or their restaurants are not getting the clientele that they used to get. And really, truthfully, what I'm seeing from the outside looking in is that it's a financial problem. People don't have excess money to spend. And so when these types of times pop up in the world, you've got to also cut back on your spending, obviously, but you've got to find some other ways to create some additional income. And you've got to kind of get out of the mindset and the stress and almost step outside of the situation to analyze it for yourself and to kind of look at what can you control, right? It's so easy to get caught up in the things you can't control. You can't control the number of people that have money to spend. You can control the price of your Airbnb and get it booked more. You can't control that people aren't going on vacations like they normally do, but you can control maybe finding a different target audience to add to your current audience. So maybe you find people looking for longer term stays. I've just been having a lot of conversations. You can't control the cost of the deli meat and the cost of making the sandwich per se and still keeping that same quality. But you can control, maybe you don't have to feed huge sandwiches. Maybe you can feed half the sandwich and give people an opportunity to pay less so that it invites them to come in more often. And so there's just ways that you can continue to generate income and just shift with the market that you're in. Over the years, real estate has changed over the years. I have been in it almost 20 years. And over the years, it'll be a hot market where it's so easy to find buyers, but you're running your butt off and you're competing with everybody. And, it's all about who's the fastest and who writes the fastest offers or the best offers. I've been in it where it was about who had the relationship with the accounts at the banks to where that was what kept you in business. People ask a lot, like, do you flip houses? I flip them in seasons that flipping makes sense. I don't flip them in seasons where the numbers don't make sense. And so you shift as these seasons come along and you find other ways that other things that are in demand, other ways in the same industry to generate income. And so as I've been having this conversation with people a lot and standing from the outside looking in, I was thinking about the very first thing you have to do is stop the bleeding, right? You have to know where you're bleeding from, number one, which is why we talk so much about doing this red light, green light activity and constantly having dates with your money and paying attention to where is it going. Because if you don't know where you're bleeding, you can't get the stitches. You can't put the bandage on. You can't stop the bleeding. So I was just having a conversation with somebody and it's funny when you talk to people about money, money's an uncomfortable subject. And when you talk to people about money, they can justify all the things that they spend their money on. And so can I, by the way. We're all guilty of it. We can justify, oh, well, I need that because, right? So having a conversation the other day with somebody and, their house payment is very minimal. Their utilities are very minimal. Their basic necessities are very minimal, which is awesome. That is awesome. That's really a good place to be. But yet they're still in this panic and this overwhelm of how am I going to survive? And so when you're in that mindset, the very first thing you do is you start making emotional decisions. And so I hear things like, maybe I should go pull the equity out of my house. And I always hesitate. There's a million things that you can do to generate liquid income, spendable income before you risk the roof over your head. The roof over your head, and the scary thing about risking it is once it's gone, you are at the mercy of landlords, right? You are at the mercy of the market rent. You may not find a place cheaper. You have no control over it. You have no control over whether the landlord decides to sell and kick you out or raise the rents. Like when you risk the roof over your head, you become really like in the washing machine and in the reactionary, you are at the mercy of whatever happens around you. And you literally have lost the last thing that you have control over, which is the most important thing, the roof that protects your head. Now, if you're living beyond your means and you can't afford the roof over your head, that's a different conversation. That conversation is maybe a downsizing, maybe putting yourself into a more affordable housing situation. A lot of people just bought more than they could afford because the bank said they could. But first, you got to figure out where you're bleeding. So in this conversation, I was talking to this person and they were like, my everyday expenses are good. And I'm like, that's awesome, because though you feel like the sky is falling and you have to take all the urgent, you have to take urgent action, and you don't have to risk the roof over your head. You have other assets that can be sold, leveraged, used to generate income, things like that before you ever touch the roof over your head. So number one, figure out where you're bleeding from and stop the bleeding. In this particular instance, this person had 2 vehicles that were costing like $1,400 a month or something like that. And the justification of those vehicles was, well, one is my daily driver and one is for this vision that I have that will create or could create income in the future, but it wasn't at the moment. So number one, stop the bleeding. Number two, that conversation was make the sacrifice, right? Like you probably own some things that would be worth money. And I'll tell you, when the market is hard and people are in a hard financial situation, that's also when the most opportunity shows up for those of us who have managed money okay, or managed money well and have liquidity to where we can go buy these things that are now on sale. Unfortunately, the fire sale that you have to potentially, the asset that you have to sell as a fire sale becomes the benefit and the opportunity of the guy who managed his money better than you did. So it's a season, and sometimes you have to make the sacrifice. If you have an asset that somebody else would pay money for, you can't look at it and say, well, I paid more than that. If you need the money and the alternative is risking the roof over your head, then you get rid of and you sell at a discount the thing that somebody would trade you for money, right? And it's not the house first. So what assets do you have that you could liquidate? Maybe it's quads, motorcycles, cars, things like that. And you keep the necessities. You keep the things that you have to have. If you have to have a car to get to work, then you keep the car to get you to work, but you don't keep the $80,000 pickup truck that maybe you shouldn't have bought because you couldn't afford it, right? So make the sacrifice. The thing about sacrifice is this is just a season. You can get it back later. You're not saying goodbye forever. You're saying goodbye for now. And you are taking care of priorities first. And then the next thing you have to do is check yourself and ask yourself, like, where can I make more money? And maybe in the same exact ways that I'm doing it, where can I find more opportunities in the same world, right? So if I'm in the real estate world and I'm a real estate agent and my money comes from sales, I might get into leasing or rentals. I might get into managing Airbnbs for other people. I may get into being a showing agent and making money for other people, helping other people make money such that I also get paid. There's a million ways that you can add revenue with whatever role you're already in. And sometimes they're not super obvious, or sometimes you say, yeah, but like, I don't want to do that because I don't want people to see me do that. I don't want people to, we just had a partner call, our company had a partner call, and my business partner, Ben, is a genius at bringing humble humans to the table that are just extraordinary, but completely normal at the same time. And this gentleman that he brought on the call is a massive, massive YouTuber, or has become, and really is just a humble, humble human that was in a situation where he wasn't making money, didn't know how he was going to make ends meet. And he started just giving free haircuts and videotaping and himself giving free haircuts, and he went viral, and this audience and attention started to generate opportunities for revenue and doors opening because he was just doing the thing he knew how to do, even if that meant he was doing it for free, knowing and praying that it would open the right doors for him to have a better future. And of course it did, because God doesn't give you a talent that he's not going to give you the means to multiply it and to bless people and to walk out his will. So, getting rid of your ego, he spoke about, I didn't want to be the guy that was giving free haircuts. And then I didn't want to always be the guy giving free haircuts. But he shifted his mindset from, I don't want to be the guy, to I get to be the guy. I'm blessed to be the guy. If today's episode helped you to think differently about money, read the Family Banking Blueprint. It'll walk you through the exact framework that we use to build your family's wealth. And remember, faith first, family always, and don't forget to get some assets. And it's crazy, his story and how that changed and just like turned into him teaching prisoners how to give haircuts and how to generate income when they get out of prison. And God will open the doors if you walk through them. If you are obedient and you do as you should with your talents, giving them away as gifts and blessing others, God will open doors bigger than you could imagine. And sometimes that means we have to drop our ego. That means we have to show up on camera when we feel stupid. We have to show up on stage or teach the class or have the meeting or do the thing that makes us uncomfortable. Last week, I asked somebody to cover me so that I could take my kids on vacation. And I asked them to cover me and teach the class. And they were like, well, I want to help you, but not with that. And there's so much growth in doing the things that make you uncomfortable, right? Even if it's growth through humility, right? I was talking to this person and I was saying, there's so many ways to make money with like Uber and Lyft and Instacart and Uber Eats. Like, we live in a time where there's a million ways to earn. And sometimes our egos and our insecurities stop us from generating revenue because we're afraid to get on camera. We're afraid to do the podcast. We're afraid to teach the class. We don't want to show up in the Instacart and somebody see us doing this job because, we were on stages and we were celebrities before. Or, what if we run into somebody? What if we stumble over what we say and we don't speak the right words and we embarrass ourselves? What if, and all of these things that are really ego-based, not in a bad way, like we all have an ego, but all of these things that are really ego-based stop us from walking through the open door and taking the opportunity. And the discomfort and the opportunity walking through that door is generally what creates just abundance, right? Doing the thing that makes us uncomfortable. I tell you today about being in business with Ben, if you would have saw what it took me to get there. It was uncomfortable. It was embarrassing. I was relentless. Ask the man. I think he thought I was a crazy stalker and didn't know that I was actually like a good human that just recognized another good human and wanted to be in business with them. But, I remember looking around at other people and they were like, what are you doing, Kristen? What are you doing? And I know it looked crazy to them. It was so uncomfortable to me, but I knew that I wanted to be in a bigger world. And I knew that I wanted to be with amazing humans who blessed other people. And therefore, I was willing to do the thing that was super uncomfortable every freaking day and be relentless at the pursuit of the opportunity until the door opened. And honestly, there was years I didn't know if the door would ever open. And so dropping the ego and not being not worrying about how stupid you might look and pursuing the goal, pursuing the dream, pursuing the thing that will generate the revenue, even if it right now in this season looks like driving for Uber or driving for Lyft or dropping Instacart or waitressing or whatever it is that in your mind you're thinking, but I can't do that. Yeah, you can. If you need to, you can. And just stop the ego. Recognize that it's ego and recognize that it's insecurity or whatever the case may be, and just do it anyway. Because putting yourself in a situation where you are uncomfortable will change you. It will help you to become the person that God intended you to be. So number 3, drop your ego. And number 4, just do the work. Over the years, I've heard it said a lot, Kristen, nobody's coming to save you. And I'm like, please, somebody, please just save me. Please. It'd be a lot easier if, and I always would tease my brother. He swore to me for years that women only wanted men with money. And I was like, I only want to make my own money so that I can always be independent and have what I want and build what I want. And I never understood that women wanted money thing because I just wanted my own. But it's funny because the truth is, there are moments in life that are freaking hard and they're uncomfortable and they're embarrassing and they create insecurities in you and your mind starts telling you all the stories. And the truth is if you just show up every day and do the work anyways, the outcome will multiply and the multiplication will then begin to bless and it will grow into something bigger than you ever could have dreamed or imagined when you're walking in obedience and you're just doing the work and not operating off how you feel, but operating off what must be done, right? So just do the work. And then lastly, just realizing it's a season, not a sentence. I think so often we think we're making life decisions forever. I see this a lot when people switch houses and maybe it's a house that they didn't really want, or maybe it's a downgrade in something. And they literally stop and will not take the action that needs to be taken to stop the bleeding because they see it as a life sentence. You hear stories of multimillionaires that had to start over again, right? If you did it once, you can do it again. If you had it once, you can have it again. Just because you have to sacrifice for the season doesn't mean that it's a sacrifice forever. Doesn't mean that it's a marriage to that opportunity forever. Maybe you had to take a job you didn't really want. It doesn't mean it's forever. It's for a season and you have to walk through it and there's a lesson in it. And in every lesson, there's a blessing. So whatever you're standing in right now, whatever feels scary, the conversations about money and what do we do, ask yourself, where is the bleeding and stop it? You have to stop the bleeding. And it usually means sacrifice something. So stop the outflow. Make the sacrifice to get rid of whatever it is that you do have that would refill the bucket. Drop the ego about any of it because right now you're in a season where nobody cares, right? You got to do what you got to do. And then go do the work. And remember, show up every day. You're walking through doors that will give you an opportunity, teach you and create the human that you're becoming. And it's for a season. And that season you'll look back on and it will be a blessing. Oftentimes, the hardest things that people walk through become their greatest blessings. And they also become the gift that they give to others. So if you're walking through it right now, just keep walking, one foot in front of the other, consistency every single day. And just do the work. But you have to stop the bleeding because you're not going to see the forward progress until you stop what's causing the problem. So hopefully this has brought some ideas to mind and you've got some ideas of how this shows up in your life and how you can make a change immediately to stop the bleeding and start making progress because it's just a season. You just have to walk through it. You're going to get through it. You're going to come out of the other side even better than before. So until next time, we're going to think about how to stop the bleeding and how to, in the future, have some assets. The assets are beautiful because they add to the income bucket. They create cash flow that then you don't have to worry so much about job income. And that's my whole goal here is to get you in a place where job income is not what you're dependent on. So I hope you find this valuable. I appreciate you joining me today and I will see you next week. Until then, think about getting some assets. All right, friends, that's it for today. But remember, faith first, family always, and don't forget to get some assets. I'll see you next time.